With more on the story is France 24's Claire Pacquelin. Now, Claire, you've been following this story for us. Firstly, tell us, why are we seeing this strike?
Well, this strike, first of all, as you were saying, is not coming at a great time of year for Ryanair. It never looks good on an airline when people's holiday plans are cancelled right in the middle of summer. And actually what's interesting is that last December, just before Christmas, Ryanair faced another strike. Pilots threatened to go on strike, and in the end they didn't, because Ryanair said for the first time that it would recognise trade unions. Up until then, Ryanair did not recognise trade unions at all. Now, with this strike, it's basically the culmination of 7 months of talks between trade unions and Ryanair that have not gone anywhere. I was speaking earlier on to the German Pilots Association, a spokesman there, and he told me that really there were times they thought they had an agreement, and then Ryanair backed down a few days later saying, oh, no, you guys didn't understand, that's not actually what we meant. They'd reached some kind of gridlock, and they decided, OK, it's time for us to go on strike. The main sticking point really is the issue that if you're a pilot for Ryanair, then actually it doesn't matter where you live or work in Europe, you are employed under an Irish working contract. And now, for instance, for the German case, this is problematic because if you're a German pilot, well, you work for Ryanair, you have to pay for your uniform, you have to pay for parking when you park your car at the airport, you even have to pay for a bottle of water when you're on board the flight. Ryanair says it does reimburse its pilots for this, but actually, according to the German Pilots Association that I was speaking to, what happens is they actually take the money out of the pilot's salary. So the pilot gets a kind of artificial salary boost, but actually the money comes out of it to pay for their uniform and sometimes to pay for some training programs as well. So really, this has got to a point where the German Pilot Association, Sweden as well, the Belgians, the Dutch, they're pretty unhappy about the way they feel that as working outside of Ireland, there's no reason they should be under an Irish working contract. Ryanair, though, says that German pilots have good working conditions, excellent working conditions, 190,000 euros salaries for some German pilots. That is, again, something that the German Pilot Association that I was speaking to said they've never met a single Ryanair pilot in Germany who earns that amount. They usually earn about half that amount, slightly more. So for Ryanair, this strike is unjustified, it's unnecessary, and it's regrettable. For the trade unions, it's been a long time coming.
Now, Claire, it may come as a surprise to some, but there are no Ryanair pilots here in France that are going on strike. Why is this?
Well, certainly you think strike, you think France. And this is an interesting one. And it's because, actually, if you're French and you're a pilot for Ryanair, well, then the chances are that you don't actually live in France. And that is because back in 2011, Ryanair actually closed its French base. It was down in Marseille. A French court said, right, you guys, you need to start paying and employing French staff under local French contracts and no longer put them under Irish contracts. And Ryanair, instead of doing that, instead of having to pay social charges here in France, it decided to close the base altogether, and it actually distributed its staff to various different bases around Europe. So I was speaking a little earlier on to a French pilot who's based in Spain, and he told me that actually for young pilots, it's a particularly difficult situation. He was telling me, for instance, in the first 12 months that you're a pilot for Ryanair, you're on a kind of probation period. That means that if you fall sick, even if you produce a doctor's note to say, to justify that you are sick, Ryanair actually doesn't pay you. So you end up using 150 euros for each day that you are sick for during those first 12 months when you're a pilot for Ryanair. And that clearly is an issue for him. He said that actually what that encourages is Ryanair pilots who are unwell to go and work, even if they're not fit to fly. Obviously, that's a danger issue as well. It encourages them to work because they don't want to lose out on their money. Again, of course, I'm to stress Ryanair would refute that. It says that clearly this strike for them is unnecessary and unjustified, and it wants to continue negotiations with the trade unions.
All right, Claire, thank you very much for that analysis. We do appreciate it.